because we have to get some boots on the ground reporting, Perloff, on just how much Brock Purdy mania has gotten out of control. So for that, we turn to Ray Ratto, who's a host on 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. He also writes for The Defector. Ray, we needed somebody to tell us the truth. What is the level of Brock Purdy mania right now in the Bay Area?
Sickening. It's typically San Francisco quarterback over the top. It was over the top when Trey Lance got drafted. It was over the top when Jimmy Garoppolo was traded for. It's been over the top for every 49er quarterback going back to Frankie Albert, which is before any of us were alive. There is a weird thing about 49er fans and their quarterback that takes over all rational thought, because the truth is the 49ers are as good as they are because they can run the ball and because they have a frightening defense. The quarterback is almost tertiary to their success or failure. And yet Purdy, in essentially 2 games, being the beneficiary of 7 turnovers caused by the defense, has had the easiest job in America, and they're hailing him as the future starter. So it's an appalling development, but it's one we're used to.
Ray, we talked about this. No big words. What are you throwing tertiary out there for? Come on. It's a CBS Sports Radio. This is not San Francisco. You know.
Hey, you went to school. Knock it off.
Yeah, Mr. Ivy League over here.
So when you put it that way, is there that big a drop-off from Jimmy G to Brock Purdy? Is this still a Super Bowl hopeful with Brock Purdy a quarterback?
It's only slightly more difficult than it was when Garoppolo was playing, only because Purdy hasn't seen all the things that good defensive coordinators are going to throw at him. Mm-hmm. The benefit is that their last 4 games are against exceedingly beatable opponents, and it really may not come into play until they face Philadelphia in the conference final, if it comes to that. I don't think, though, in general, that the 49ers are particularly damaged by changing quarterback because, like I said, they defend like crazy, and Christian McCaffrey is much better than your average 3-game suspension. So, it's one of those things where in football, your quarterback is everything except here, where he's something, but nobody's quite sure what.
Ray Ratto is our guest, host 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area, is also a writer for The Defector. What about Deebo, though? Because I think that kind of got glossed over a little bit, which is kind of crazy to say considering how good he is. But because the 49ers have been winning so convincingly, how big of a loss is Deebo for the next few weeks?
Hard to tell, because as good as he is, a lot of the functions that he performed last year when they made their run to the playoffs has been sort of taken over by McCaffrey. I mean, he's a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's an electrifying runner between the tackles. So in some ways, Samuel's loss is not critical. It doesn't help them by any means. It gives them one last passing target, which means that Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle have to be more prominent in their thinking. But I think overall, it sucks, but it doesn't suck nearly as much as it could suck. So it's sort of a semi-suck.
I hear that all the time.
We're talking to Ray Ratto, host 95.7 The Game in the Bay Area. Ray, what does Kyle Shanahan think of all this? Is he the kind of coach who kind of likes the spotlight on him and maybe winning with a lesser quarterback?
All coaches are egomaniacs and lunatics, so I would say anything is possible. But I think he's a lot more like his father than people think, in that he's sort of a process guy, in that he knows what butters his bread, and that's, like I said, that defense and that running game, and he hasn't really deviated from it in the 5+ years that he's coached. I mean, he shows you what he's doing week in and week out. And a lot of people say, well, but he's supposed to be an offensive genius, which means he must be able to be a quarterback whisperer and throw the ball downfield 45 times a game. when in fact he is a guy who plays percentages. And for his team, the quarterback is not the most vital character. The fact that he will take chances is more a function of his job as the team's general manager, because he drafted Trey Lance without much of a resume. And when Lance got, when they couldn't trade Garoppolo, he re-upped him at a time when everybody thought that Garoppolo was done, including Garoppolo. He's more of a gambler when he's wearing the coat and tie than he is when he's wearing the coaching suit. So I think in that way, he is like his dad, which means he plays his cards the way they're dealt to him, rather than trying to impose a system that his roster can't provide. So I think in some ways he can be an egomaniac, because all coaches are, but he's not an egomaniac in that it's got to be his way or the highway. He's more adaptable than that.
Ray, we start off the conversation and said, what was Brock Purdy mania like? And you said it's sickening. So how would you describe the Brady to San Francisco chatter that's out there, where Brady could have the homecoming next season and come to the 49ers?
Galactically stupid. Kyle Shanahan had a chance to make a run at Brady before and didn't. So I cannot imagine 2 years later that he's all of a sudden going to go, you know what? Brady's not as good as he used to be. Let's go get him now. I think people love quarterback narratives around here, and it's really one of the reasons why many people here should be put in prison for their own good.
Sure.
But I think the Brady thing it's a narrative that happened 2 years ago, and people don't like to give up narratives, no matter how stupid they are. So, I think that's a way non-starter. But it doesn't mean that people won't drool over it, because, as I said, we're not well.
Ray, I got a stupid narrative for you. I'm very, very good at these, actually.
At least you can admit it.
The story of the day is that Micah Parsons of the Cowboys called Jalen Hurts basically a system quarterback. I have maintained in the past, and don't get mad at me, that Joe Montana, to a large degree, was a system quarterback. And people, including Joe Montana, have yelled at me for being an idiot.
I'm shaking my head.
Help me out here, Ray. There is some element of that to Joe Montana.
Well, you are an idiot, but not for that reason.
Okay.
If that helps. No,
that does.
I mean, in some ways, Montana was indeed a system quarterback, but he was also a better improviser than he ever got credit for. So I think that's probably why he rebels at it. He was the guy who, in the NFC Championship game could, look up in the stands and see John Candy and for a moment lose focus and then regain it. But I've also rebelled against the notion that system quarterbacks are a bad thing. Because ultimately the thing you're supposed to do is get more points than the other guy. And whether the system does that or whether you do that is irrelevant. It's just, did the game get won? Did you do anything to either help win the game or not retard the other your teammates' ability to win the game? If you do either of those things, you still get the same reward. So the question of system quarterback, mad, impetuous improviser is, to me, it's a tail chase. It's just, what are you arguing about? Did you get the win or did you not get the win? And if you got the win, it sort of doesn't matter whether you're a system quarterback or not. As far as Montana goes, that's all eye of the beholder. It's sort of was it Brady or was it Belichick? I mean, it's both of them, because like Belichick, Bill Walsh could do things with Montana that he couldn't do with other quarterbacks. And, so is the system adapting to the quarterback or is the quarterback adapting to the system? Well, it's a little of both. So in response to your question, yes, you are an idiot.
Yes.
But for much different reasons.
Ray, can't tell you how much we appreciate this. I very much appreciated that. Also,
you're carrying a heavy burden. Let's be honest.
Listen, I've got, my back hurts from carrying all this. No, congratulations. We all can't wait to see what Carlos Correa looks like as a 41-year-old shortstop. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. No, I'm just kidding. Enjoy it out there. Thank you so much for making time for us today. We'll check in with you soon.
Okay, stay warm.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I
Ray.
know. He's
Yeah.
right about that.
Yeah, I kind of thought when I asked him to support me on the Joe Montana as assistant quarterback, I thought Ray Ratto, who like me is a bit of a contrarian, would go there. But I don't even think that's
So
not
Joe
even
Montana actually yelled at you?
Oh yeah, he didn't like that. He said this was on the Dan Patrick Show, and he goes, looks at my hands. These are 4 system rings.
Well
Actually,
played.
by the way, for the record, I didn't go to Joe Montana. We were all sitting there. It was a Super Bowl. I didn't say, Joe Montana, I think you're a system quarterback.
Yeah.
Dan Patrick and all his wisdom goes, hey, Joe, this guy over here, Andrew, he said you're a system quarterback. Joe Montana, the nicest guy in the world. You've interviewed Joe Montana, right?
The nicest guy.
Yeah. It was like fire across his face.
Wow.
It was, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know you were that competitive. Duh.
I'm glad you finally realized that. Yeah, it's funny sometimes when you're interviewing athletes and then something will turn.
Yeah.
That happened to me once interviewing Drew Brees at the Super Bowl in New Orleans
good
when
one.
he wasn't playing. Brees is the nicest guy. Like, he'll do an
Yeah.
interview, he'll be gracious at this time, and something like, hey, Drew, like, you wish you were playing in this game, like, in front of your home fans, and he just looked at me like, lady?
Yeah.
Why would you ask me that? And I was like, you know what? I went there. I shouldn't have gone there. I'm
Yeah,
a habitual
yeah.
line stepper.
All these guys, like Drew Brees would murder your grandmother to win a ping pong game. He's out of, they're all crazy.
Thank you for watching our video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this, just hit the bell.
Yeah, ring the bell.
Just hit the bell.